Monster Hunter Rise is an early access game. Now, hold on a moment before you burn me at the stake for speaking such blasphemy. Hear me out. Hear me out. Number one, I think Monster Hunter Rise is a very good game. One could argue it's a great game. One could argue it is the best in the franchise. I mean, I have almost 400 hours in it. I wouldn't play a game I didn't enjoy for 400 hours. Granted, I am from the Destiny community, so I am kind of used to doing that kind of thing. Having said that, despite Monster Hunter Rise being so good and having so many good qualities to it, there's been a lot of talk as to why Monster Hunter Rise feels off and to why something just in general in the community feels off. And I talked about it in the last video, which noticed you guys were very vocal on. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that Monster Hunter Rise, despite everything that's so amazing about it, is at its core a very bare bones experience, and I would argue is an early access game. So let me explain to you why I think it's an early access game. Number one, if you go from when Monster Rise first launched, and you just and you finished everything, and you were like wondering, okay, what do I do next? There wasn't anything to do next. There was this, hey, wait for the next update for more. But not only that, because that's something like a lot of live service games do. You know, a lot of live service games add their main end game stuff. You know, after everyone's grinded out and stuff. But we were just missing everything, basically. At the end of the story, it was basically, okay, just make builds and farm talismans, and that's it. You have so many monsters and you have so many weapons, so you can come up with different combinations. But most people don't really play that many weapons. If you're like a super hardcore Monster Hunter enthusiast, you're meaning every weapon, hunting every monster with every weapon. But most people I've encountered mostly stick to one or two weapons. So if you're like that kind of hunter, which is most people I know, you're running out of things to do really freaking quickly, and you're more than likely getting tired of the talisman grind. Not to mention that before the second update, a lot of people just had bug talisman tables. I had a friend who was he had the really bad talisman bug, where he was just getting the same I think it was 9 or somewhere between 9 and 40 talismans in a row, where he just stopped playing the game, and a lot of people I know stopped playing the game for that reason, because the only thing to do was talisman grind, and the one thing, the one incentive they had, aside from fun obviously, was completely broken, So that's one thing. Another thing is, if you looked at the upgrades for weapons, you would notice that things were missing. It was very very obvious that just things were missing. It's wait, why don't these weapons upgrade further? It's wait, why is this only in low rank? It was very clear things were missing, just little pieces here and there. It's huh? And people try to justify it. It's oh, wait for the next update. It's oh, it's coming in the next update. Be patient. It's when Monster Hunter World launched, just talking about base world Monster Hunter, it had so many more Elder Dragons, much more clear progression, all the upgrades on launch. It was a complete experience from the very beginning. And all the updates were just all purely additional, nothing adding any systems or additional upgrades aside from just from new monster weapons and stuff like that, new mantles. But everything was just its own thing, separate from the base game, especially Iceborne. We're not talking about Iceborne. I strictly want to talk about base game Rise compared to base game World. And so with Rise, the first update that came out, 2.0, and the way they've also named these updates coming out, it's the way you kind of game developers tend to name their versions of the game, you know. So Monster Rise was 1.0. Update 2 is titled 2.0. Update 3 is 3.0. You know, it's not like Update 1, Update 2, Update 3. You know, the first update is called 2.0. You know, indicating that this is the second version of the game, as in like the first version wasn't really complete. Here's a more complete version. Having said that, 3.0 is even more complete. You know, so it's kind of like it has like all the hallmarks, like just which is that with the naming progression of like an early access game, and it feels like an early access game. There's things that are missing, you know, that make it feel like an early access game. So update 2.0 added Teostra, Kushala, Camellios, and made it to where you could fight those apexes outside, you know, for like just trash rewards, basically, or just kind of pointless rewards. So they're fun fights, don't get me wrong, but like they won't have any unique armor, no unique weapons, very little incentive to run those apexes unless you just want your butt kicked by things with like a ton of HP, you know? And if you compare it to World, which we're going to be doing a lot of right now, the monster, Kushala, Teostra, and Camellios are kind of analogous to Teostra, Kushala, and Valhazak in the World, you know? So like think of Ibushi as Zora Magdaros and Narwa as Nergigante, you know? So like imagine if World only launched with those two elders. Granted, we get to kill Nergigante. We don't even get to kill the first two elders in Rise. But imagine if World only launched with those two elders, and then that was it, you know? That was it. Imagine if it didn't have like augment progression or any new hunts past the story, you know? Like imagine, like maybe people would have been fine at World launch, you know? But they would have been comparing it to GU. But they probably would have been distracted by the fact that like the quality of light and the combat was so good. But it probably would have felt weird to a lot of Monster World players, you know? It might have even felt weird for me. You know, if Monster World was my first game. The game would have probably felt a little short if it just ended with Nergigante or Zora Magdaros. It'd be like, oh, that's the end. And basically, that's how everyone felt at the end of Rise. It was like, oh, that's the end? That's it? No, it's not, you know? The rest is coming later. So, I feel like it's one of two things. It's Monster Hunter Rise is an early access game, you know? Or Monster Hunter Rise is a live service game. If it's a live service game, it's a really bad live service game. I know most Monster Hunter fans don't want Monster Hunter as a live service game. I'm personally not against that at all. But I wish that Capcom and the community were just more open-minded about that fact that, like, hey, this is... it's either early access or it's a live service, but it's definitely not a complete experience right now, which is why I don't recommend people buy, like, a Switch exclusively for the game, because the game's not really finished, you know? Capcom's even said, like, hey, the story isn't done yet. But what they mean to say is the game isn't done yet. It's not just the story that's not done. The game isn't done. So after the 3.0 update, then we're gonna actually start getting like new content that was like meant to be after the game, meant to be released after the game was actually done. You know, we'll probably start seeing the updates be called Update like 1 or something. I highly doubt that the next update after 3.0 is gonna be called 4.0. I'm pretty sure it's gonna be called like a new monster update or Update 1. You know, because 3.0 is the final version of the game, and it'll be done. But I'm not saying that this is a bad thing, you know? I'm just, like, making it, I'm just making it a point to, like, say that this is an early access game. It's not as good as I expected. It's not as good as a lot of people expected. But it's still a good game, you know? And, of course, with the pandemic, you know, you have to understand, it's like, they probably had to meet a specific deadline. And, you know, the game is pretty good as is, you know? And I kind of wish they delayed it. Could you imagine if Monster Hunter Rise released, like, I don't know, 3-6 months later? with like everything that we got in the last update and everything we're getting in the next update. Could you imagine how much better it would have been? How much more of a complete experience it would have been, you know? But pandemic, deadlines, all that stuff, you know, and they had to release it as is. But I just wish that, like, Capcom and especially the community were a little more transparent about, like, what the current state of Monster Hunter Rise is. And I hope that the next update changes that. You know, I don't want to sound overly negative, you know. Monster Hunter Rise is a great game. There's a lot of things in it that are like so much better than World. There's a lot of things in it that are worse than World. It's a great game. Do I like it more than World? I don't know. I enjoyed enough. I enjoyed enough to put 400 hours into it, so it must be doing something right. You know, but I feel like I have to be transparent of like what the quality and the content of this game is. If you're brand new to the game, and you're coming off of World or Generations Ultimate and looking for something similar, just know that like the things to do as of right now after you finish the story are very limited. So just keep that in mind. It's gonna be a completely different experience. Some may like it, some may hate it, some may be in the middle, like me. You know, I'm always in the middle, and I try to be the voice of reason, or not. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on everything. You know, I'm just one person and their dumb opinion. Okay, either way, if you enjoyed this video, leave a like or a comment, or not, whatever. Subscribe on YouTube if you enjoy this. It's easier if you just come to my Twitch channel and just make fun of me there. It's like, Rammus, I hate you. Your opinions suck. You're the worst thing to happen to Monster Hunter since, I don't know, since whoever the last problematic person was. You know, follow my Twitch. You wouldn't obviously follow my Twitch, but come to my Twitch and say that, or follow me. Follow my Twitch if you agree with me, stuff or whatever. But either way, hope you enjoyed the video. Until next time, I will see you on the next thingamajig. Good night and good luck, everyone.